As a country, we have come up with a 10-fold growth strategy. This 10-fold growth strategy will not work out if you are looking at the domestic market. For it to happen, and whenever I talk of a 10-fold growth strategy, you have a timeline. For us, the timeline is within the next 15, 20 years. This timeline cannot happen when we are focusing just within the borders of Uganda. It will also not happen when you are focusing within the smaller area of East Africa. It's a story which says that we as a country have ability to sell what we have been selling in a very modest scale, in a much bigger scale within Africa and beyond Africa. And if we do that well, we will be seeing what has happened in the economies like Singapore, in the economies like even Senegal, some of the smaller economies that have been able to make a mark in the global arena by saying, what do we have as an advantage? Can we leverage that advantage to go global? And that's what Uganda is saying we can do in our 10-fold strategy. Whenever we talk of the export market, many times we tend to have the illusion that that is for all established brands. One, the truth is that established brands have got a muscle, both in terms of operations, technology, human resources, and ability to do market survey. But that does not necessarily limit the smaller players. The smaller players, all that they need to do is to launch themselves into value chains of the export market. What does that mean? Even the producer of coffee in Masaka in Uganda can be associated with the export market. But they have to latch themselves into the market value chain of coffee, for which the anchor player at the end of the export market has the ability to enter the export market. So your size doesn't really matter, but you must matter in the value chain. That's the key message.
The markets available for Ugandans are first of all regional. Our products are demanded very highly from our neighbors' places. The Kenyans take a lot of our product. DRC is a niche market. And Sudan, South Sudan, that is regional. So we have to promote Africa as well, business, inter-Africa business. The other market is actually Middle East and Europe, goes without saying. But the other international markets are more stringent, but the easier ones that you can start with are those that I've mentioned in the region and in the neighboring countries. A Ugandan exporter can maximize the current demand for our products in Uganda by knowing what the market wants. You must always start with the market. What standards are expected there? What requirements do they want? What products do they want? Then you work backwards to deliver the product that they want. The challenge that we have faced as Ugandans is we always start with what we grow best, which most times or sometimes the market doesn't necessarily want, so they pay low value for it. But if you start with the market, establish what they're asking for, then you work backwards and you grow exactly what they want. Again, each destination has its own standards. The common one that we in exports deal with are what we call voluntary market standards. And the common one is what they call global gap. It's the one that the European markets are adopting and are being adopted by all the other subsequent markets in the world. It always starts with knowing the cost, because you need to assess if it is worth the money to get that standard. The beauty about it is once you get them, they're complex, yes, but once you get them, then you have access to the high-end, high-value markets.
For export markets, first of all, you got to develop a good product. The product is going to be good for the local market. Other than those two particular products that are not consumed locally, but I believe that anything you export must have a local market. So the product has to be good, produced professionally, and then should be packaged properly, up to standard, should get UNBS certification, because without meeting the local standard, forget about the international standard. After getting the UNBS certification with the proper packaging and branding, now we can look at the export markets. So then that product is ready for the regional and export markets. The major mistake our exporters do is opening markets when they don't have enough produce. You cannot promise an export market 100 tons when you know your capacity is only 10 tons. So managing your production capacity and making sure it can fit the export contract is critical and key. Don't promise what you cannot deliver. If you know Uganda is the biggest coffee producer, then you know, at least for coffee, if your capacity to produce and add value is sufficient, you can deliver coffee all year round. When you come to products like fresh mangoes, we all know there's a season to that. So you don't promise the market that you're going to deliver fresh mangoes from Uganda all year round because it won't be available. So these are common mistakes that we shouldn't, our exporters shouldn't do. Please sign your contracts based on your capacity and what's available.